Welcome to the Mind, Body and Soul Show with artist, author and personal development coach John Morris. Inspiring, motivating and educating you on your journey to find balance in the craziness of day-to-day life. Learn from and listen to a man who has a wealth of life experience, from business to bodybuilding, artist to author, and has learned to deal with his own physical and mental wellness. But that's not all. Each week, John will be joined by guests from around the world and all walks of life, where they too will share their knowledge and expertise. And now, we welcome you to today's episode of the Mind, Body and Soul Show with your host, John Morris.
Well, good afternoon, folks, all the way from sunny Scotland, and welcome to the Mind, Body and Soul Show, where we help you get from where you are to where you want to be, hopefully simply and easily. And this is the show where we help you also find balance in the craziness of day-to-day life. I am really excited, pumped, and fired up to be on this show today with the LA Tribune. I am your host, John Morris, the artist, author, and personal development coach. That is what the PDC stands for. Now, normally on this show, we would have guests from around the world, whether it be wrestlers or bodybuilders, whether it be actors or authors. But on this specific pilot of this show, I decided it'd be a really, really good idea to kind of hang out with you guys and for you guys to get to know me a little bit and for me to get to know you a little bit. So if you've got any questions during the proceeds of the show, get in touch, type them in, and I'm happy to communicate with you, and we maybe even have some time to do Q&A at the end. But I'm coming to you today all the way from beautiful sunny Scotland. If you could see, the sun is just setting outside. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous day. So what have we got in store for you in this show today? Well, let me tell you, we're going to be talking about anxiety, how we get it, why we get it, more importantly, what has changed in society that is causing this ferocious activity to be taking place. We're also going to be talking, and I'm going to be sharing something with you that's a little bit special today, all about how art and the mind and body and soul all connect together, and ultimately how you can get back to your roots with that. Plus, I'm going to be sharing with you a really, really cool meditation and something very, very special in our show and tell later on that is about 22 years old, if you can believe that. But before we get any further into these things, we want to turn now to our first segment. And we're talking about anxiety today. Now, anxiety, whenever I do these shows, whether it be on YouTube or on lives or whatever it might be, I always like to start with a definition. What is anxiety? Well, anxiety is a fear of the past or a fear of the future. Notice the common word in there, which is fear. People around the world these days seem to be more and more fearful than ever before, and partly rightly so. There's a lot of things going on in the media that's going to confuse you, that's going to upset you, that's going to wind you up, which is part of the reason that I very, very rarely ever watch anything on the news, because it's designed in that way to really get you upset. It used to be where the news many, many moons ago, here's a history lesson for you folks. It used to be many moons ago that the news would be a stopgap between you and the government. It would tell basically what was going on in government, what was going on in Parliament, what was going on over in the UK, in jolly old England with the King and Queen. What it has actually become is now almost a way for people to be scared and scaremongering tactics and very, very fearful things on the mass media at large. So anxiety is really born out a lot of it, or is it? Anxiety, believe it or not, is something that as human beings we create. It is what we call a learned association. I should also mention that I'm a psychologist in training, so you'll be getting a lot of different things as we go through the proceedings of this show and into this series. So, from a psychological point of view, anxiety is really something that we create in our mind. And it's basically our mind's way of telling us, look, there's something going on that's wrong here. I'm frightened. I'm scared. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Now, this has really only come into the forefront of people's minds within the last, 30 years, maybe the last even 10 years, really, to the point that, people are being told anxiety maintenance and depression maintenance. See, I've never been a fan of these whole things that are designed to maintain. Because what it means to me is that what medical experts are telling you is that you don't have the power within you to control it. It also means that medical experts are going to tell you that, you don't have the power to control it, so therefore we need to drug you. Now, let me be very, very clear on this, folks. There are certain things that you will experience in your life. So, for example, if you suffer with depression, that is usually it can be caused by traumatic events for sure, but it can usually caused by a lack of or too much serotonin in your levels. So that's, your levels, basically your serotonin is what makes you feel all happy and all good. If you've too much of that, you can be way off the charts, and that's where your OCD and your hyperactivity and all that other stuff comes in. If it's too low, then that's when you're going to have feelings of depression, feelings of worthlessness, all of that kind of stuff. But the thing I suppose that I, explore a lot of these, I always try to get to the root. And what I found with anxiety is the common thread is fear, the common thread is feelings, and the common thread is also the world in which we're living in. I'm going to touch on that a little bit in a moment. But let's talk about the first thing, shall we? So the common thread even is fear. And like we said, you can be fearful of the news, you can be fearful when you look outside and you see, countries going to war with each other and all sorts of chaotic stuff that's happening. You can be fearful of the past. What if somebody finds out something that you've done? What about if someone finds out, skeletons in your closet? The easiest way to actually deal with that is just to tell people very honestly, because it makes you human. It makes you more relatable. And, I've had people say, but John, they would never understand. And it's like, if they truly love you, they will. And you just got to figure out how it is that you want to tell them. I digress. So that is, really where fear and all the anxieties begin. The people turn on the news and they see these horrific events that are happening. The other thing that really struck me when I was thinking about this whole thing with anxiety is there are more and more expectations upon us than ever before. There are more and more expectations for how to dress, how to speak, how to perform, how to act, and all of that kind of stuff. And as you can see, I've moved away from pretty much all of that. But it is interesting, that the amount of people that are willing to take their own lives because they don't look as good as what society dictates that they should. Are you aware that the majority of things that are compared these days are nothing more than atoms and molecules? When somebody looks in the mirror and says, oh, I don't look as good as fill in the blank, what they're actually saying is my molecules and atoms aren't as well formed as my favorite celebrity. And when I started thinking about that, and when that was revealed to me, it was more a case of that means that the inner engineering, the stuff that goes on inside you, is more important than anything else. And this is where I suppose it really comes to a point for me of why anxiety is formed. So anxiety is formed, yes, we've said, because we're comparing ourselves to others, because we're fearful of the past or terrified of the future. What I often encourage people to do, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later on, what I often encourage people to do is to really ask themselves, is this thing that they're afraid of a realistic fear? Now, I'll give you a prime example. If you're afraid of spiders, for example, that's what we call an evolved fear. It means that hundreds and millions of years ago, spiders would have bitten you and killed you. They were also as big as the size of a tank. They were humongous. A lot of things have changed. If you want to see what I mean, you can check it out in any history program. So that is what we call an evolved fear. So is it a rational fear? Fear of spiders, fear of snakes, fear of, crowded spaces, fear of aggressive people. Those are, I would say, fairly rational fears. But here's something for you. Is your fear irrational? Now, what I mean by that is, if you step out of bed, the whole floor is going to collapse. If you step outside, you're going to be beamed up by UFOs. If you speak to someone who you truly, truly love, they're going to say something horrible and mean and nasty to you just because they can. These are called irrational fears. And the reason I bring these up, and people have laughed about these when I talked about the UFO beaming them up and things and the floor collapsing, but in a study that was done in, I think, like the early 2000s, those two things were some of the highest ranking options upon this survey that was conducted worldwide. So you got to really be aware of what's going on within inside you. Okay, now this is where it gets really, really important. To let you know, folks, the reason I speak about this in such a way is because I, for a long time, suffered with anxiety. I suffered with PTSD. I suffered with BPD, which is borderline personality disorder, as a result of the PTSD and anxiety. Now, there are stepping stones to, anxiety, which then leads to and can lead to PTSD. Then it leads to bipolar, then it leads to BPD, then it leads to schizophrenia and more severe things. So it is a stepping stone platform. So you might say, well, John, you don't come across right now as somebody who has anxiety. And this leads me to the fourth and final point of this, which is what can be done. I honestly believe that anxiety is caused by fear of what has been and fear of what could be. But I also believe that people have an incredible ability to heal themselves of anxiety. Now, stay with me for a moment, folks. Stay with me. Because I know sometimes this can seem, a little bit like we're voyaging out into space here, but keep with me. The amazing thing that I found in my journey as a psychologist in training is this. What I put into my ears has a greater effect on me than anything else, which means then that I can actually control how I feel. Why? Because I choose how I feel. Your feelings are decided. You've 60,000 of them to choose from every single day. You pick one of them, and that's how you feel. Like, for example, if you don't believe me, let's do a little test. I want you to think of the person that you love the most in your life, be it your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, girlfriend, your son or daughter, your cat, your dog, whatever it might be, the person or thing that you love the most. Really get the clear picture of them in your mind. I want you to close your eyes, get a clear picture of them in your mind. Think of their smile, think of their happiness, think of the noises that they make. You feel all warm and happy inside, don't you? Now, I want you to imagine that you're back in school. You've got a teacher that's standing there telling you, you're no good, you're worthless, you're miserable, you'll never amount to anything. It doesn't take long for that kind of speech before you start feeling really, really bad. Why? Because you're hearing it, which means you're thinking about it. All a person is doing is making noise, but it's how we perceive it, how we decide for ourselves that, this is what this means. Now, so as I don't leave you feeling all miserable and anything, close your eyes again, think about the person you love, get a good, clear image of them, think of their smile, think of their hair, think of, their special moment that they've shared with you. It makes you feel all warm and happy inside. But what I found was anxiety can be controlled. And I find that anxiety is controlled most for me by what I place into my ears. If you heard the show that I was on a couple of weeks ago, on one of the panels, I spoke about this. And I find that it's very, very important to have as correct information as you can. So when people had said to me, well, I like putting on my favorite music. Now, some music that's, more meditative music, more calming, relaxing, that can work. Okay. But if you're listening to something like, one of your favorite rock bands and you go in here, there and everywhere, it means that every 4 minutes, you've got a new emotion, you've got a new feeling, you've got a new whatever it might be. So it means that you're all over the place. What I actually found worked really, really well was audiobooks. And here's a couple of reasons why. One, you can educate yourself with an audiobook. You can also have an hour long where the reader is somewhat of a neutral energy. If they're sort of hyper and everything, then, then they're going to be hyper, they're going to be wound up, but at least you've got that for an hour and you can take that energy. Equally, if there's someone like a Wayne Dyer, that energy is going to be level. And we're actually developing a product that was a spin-off of Wayne Dyer's Everyday Wisdom, which literally was an hour of him just talking. and being who he is with soft-spoken voice and giving all inspirational quotes and really edging you on and making you feel good. And that is the importance of really taking control, because I firmly believe that anxiety comes from what we see, hear, listen to, read, surround ourselves with. Those are the 5 key areas. So you need to examine for yourself, what are you listening to? What are you watching? Who are you listening to and surrounding yourself with that could be causing you to be anxious? And if you're feeling these things, then you've got to say to yourself, do I really want to surround myself with that person? You've got to set your own boundaries. Remember, you are in control of your own life. You're in control of your own destiny. You've been told for so long that you aren't in control, that society controls you. Well, guess what? Can you move your right hand? Yes. Can you move your left hand? Yes. I know to you guys it may be back to front, but I promise you these are my right and my left. If you can do that, you can control yourself. And you can do exactly the same thing with your thoughts. If you want to be a psychologist, for example, then start studying psychology. If you want to be a spiritual teacher, start studying spiritual teachers. I've had that privilege for the last year. And I've seen how it's changed in my own life. If you want to, build and develop your wealth, start studying. When you turn something into a study, amazing, amazing things can happen. Before you know it, your life can be changed. And I suppose in some ways, as a personal development coach, what I look for the most is trying to help people get to the root of their problem without pills, without medication. Because guess what? 75% of the world's population now are dependent upon medication. And if you're in the United States, you pay a heck of a lot of money for this privilege. So you've got to be aware of yourself. You've got to be, again, inner engineering, self-awareness is so important. And when you finally have that, amazing, amazing things can happen and change for you. But anxiety, like I say, is a fear of the past, fear of the future, fear of what has been, fear of what could be. It could be, that the reason that it's often happening is because of your society. It's because of what you're listening to, what you're watching, who you're surrounding yourself with, what you're reading. The thoughts that you are putting into your head are all seeds. That's the important thing. When you start planting seeds, they are going to grow and they're going to manifest in one way or another. But the incredible thing is, you now knowing this can change how your story goes. And as I said, what can be done? You start listening to audiobooks, you start educating yourself, you start choosing who you want to surround yourself with. You start surrounding yourself with a different energy, as opposed to something that's shouting and screaming and nasty and aggressive. You listen to something that's peaceful and that's loving and, that's filled with awe and wonder. And before you know it, your life can change before you even have imagined it. We are going to go to a quick timeout now, folks. We're going to share with you one of our sponsors for this week. I think you'll like this person. I think you'll like them tremendously. And someone you're going to get to know really, really well. And we'll be back in a short. Okay, folks, and we are back. Yes, literally just like that. We are jumping into our next segment, and I really hope you enjoyed that. You know, we're now looking at something a little bit different here than what I guess you would normally see on this show. Because one thing that I love as an artist is the ability to be able to sort of mirror up the love of art along with mind, body, and soul. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that whether or not your life is a blank canvas or whether or not your life is, get out the right way, whether or not your life is a do-over, your life can be something beautiful and amazing. And this painting here that I've got with me is called The Spirit Bear. Now, I thoroughly love this painting in particular. There's a lot that I enjoy about it. But you might say, well, John, why on earth are you bringing us on and talking about a spirit bear today? Because oftentimes, folks, we can become so busy in our lives that we forget what matters. We forget taking a moment or a time out to enjoy the things we love. Maybe we've always wanted to do that painting, but we've never found the time, or we sacrifice it with our children. And then it got me thinking. It was like, well, so many shows nowadays are filled with noise. That's all they're filled with. So I thought, how about we do something a little bit fun? And I can paint with you. I can, give you some time and you can watch. And I can talk to you a little bit about what's going on and what's happening. Now, you might say, well, John, why on earth would we sit and watch this? Well, you might be surprised to learn how relaxing it actually can be. Rather than doing show and tell, I'd rather be show and tell. So, to give you a little bit of history about this, just while I get set up a little bit, the spirit bear is one of the most beautiful, gracious creatures that are out there. They're also one of the most rare. And the spirit bear is a creature like no other. A lot of people think, oh, this bear's a polar bear. It is not a polar bear, folks. This bear is seen, I believe, in only one country, and that being the United States and parts of the United States. And the reality is that it is so rare to see a spirit bear. A lot of people call them albino bears. And it's so rare to see these bears that if you do, it's considered a sacred gift. So what makes these bears special, I suppose? Well, you don't see them every single day. They are something unique. They are something very special. They're also, in my opinion, one of the most endangered species out there. And that was part of the reason for wanting to do this painting, was because when I saw how endangered they were, I wanted to raise awareness for them. Now, there are many, many great charities out there and phenomenal charities for sure. And I just started to think to myself, it's like, why is it that we've got such a high rate of endangered species? And I honestly believe it's because, more often than not, human beings have forgotten who they are. Human beings have forgotten that we once all traveled together. I think this week's episode of Going Deeper, which is available on YouTube at Mind, Body and Soul, John Morris. If you type that into Google machine, you'll find us over on YouTube. But what I found was really interesting was people forget that we all traveled together. We were all once one. And we've lost that. We've managed to lose that somewhere along the way. And what happened was, if you want the history lesson, folks, what happened was we traveled together. One part of the group said they want to go north. The other part of the group said they want to go west. And they separated with love. They bid each other goodbye. And then they moved on. Many years happened, went on, and as it naturally does. And what happened was, in about, I don't know what, 10, 12, certainly in the UK, we had people that were started invading, okay, and wanted to dominate, wanted to take power, wanted to take control. And unfortunately, that didn't stop. That is part of the reason that the UK is the way that it is now, particularly England. But that didn't stop, because it also happened in the United States. I know there's a lot of our viewers that are watching this from the good old United States. I have spent a little bit of time there. It was tremendous fun. But one of the things that you find was, for hundreds and hundreds, nearly 1,000 years, the Native Americans had lived very peacefully upon the lands. They had taken care of the lands, and the whole notion of owning land. I mean, boy, is that the biggest con ever, because nobody owns the land. But yet people have been duped into believing that they own the land. So the Native Americans took care of everything. If many people had lived the Native American way, the water would still be drinkable. And what actually happened was the Spanish first came in, then the British came in, and they started going for power, and they started going for gold and for money and for wealth and fame and fortune and all that kind of stuff. The Native Americans had gone from 60 million prior to the 1800s all the way down to just over 800,000 by the end of the 1800s. In fact, the Native Americans had almost been wiped out, particularly one of the most famous tribes around, which I believe was the Cherokee Indians. They were almost wiped out completely out of America. And I sat and I thought about this for a while, and I was like, how on earth could that have been? How on earth could people have been so brutal? And of course, the history books will forever say that the indigenous people, the Native Americans, were the horrible ones. The Native Americans were terrible. Because history is written by the winners, folks. And what you actually find is now that Native Americans only receive 1% of charity around the world. That all of the lands and the golds that were promised to them, do you know that they were meant to inherit, I believe it was 10% of any gold found upon Native American land? And there's actually a constitution in the United States law that says that Native Americans will receive 10% of all gold. Have they ever received anything? Have they, Nelly? They've never received a penny. We have forgotten, as a world, as a people, truly who we are. We have forgotten that we were all once one, that we were all once family, that we're all, once cared about each other. We've forgotten how sacred and special things used to be. And you see that more and more nowadays, more than ever, with teenagers, taking their own lives and children taking their own lives, and all manner of horrific things around the world that are going on. And I believe there is a firm correlation between what is going on and why it's happening. Is because more and more people are spending so much time on social media, on the internet, and less time outside. Have you noticed that prior to the 1800s, there was never really talk of anxiety. There was barely even talk of depression. And the crazy thing is now that one in every, I think it's actually, if I remember correctly, 1 in every 6 people have got some form of mental illness, that they've encountered some form of mental illness. Our society has changed, absolutely, and we are the most comfortable society ever known on this planet. And yet, we're the society that is the most uncomfortable in our own skin. We are the society that struggles the most with their identity, mainly because they don't have a clue who the heck they are. I firmly believe that you are a divine spiritual being having a temporary human experience. That's my definition of a human being. This whole notion of death, Native Americans don't call it death. Native Americans just say there is no death, there's just a changing of worlds. The Indian culture, and I mean that by India, not as in Native American Indian, talks about this very, very much, and it said it was just his or her time. We are here for a temporary human experience and a spiritual experience. We're here for a time such as this. 1,000 years from now, the majority of people won't even be remembered. So that means to me that you are here for a time such as this by plan, that you are designed to touch people's lives however and wherever you meet them. And when you do that, incredible, incredible things happen. What I found with my paintings was that I was able to spread light, life, and love around the world, just as I'm doing here. I mean, this, can be seen by up to 50 million people. Can you believe it? 50 million people, and I'm sitting on here, dressed up, having a whale of a time talking to you guys about the stuff that really matters. Because I think oftentimes people don't talk about the stuff that really matters. I think because they're terrified that they may be confronted, or they're terrified that it may not align with who they are. Why should that terrify you? What you're actually terrified of is a thought. It's an inanimate object. And when you start to realize that you have incredible power, and when you use your mind, amazing, amazing things can happen. You can change the world by using your mind. Do you know that? You can literally change your entire world by using your mind. By figuring out how to make the world a better place, you can literally change the world. Whether that be through a painting that brings a smile to a young person or an old person's face, whether that be sitting on here and talking about the issues that need to be talked about, need to be thrown out, need to be discussed. Don't worry about people accepting you or not accepting you. Because guess what? I used to worry about that a lot. I used to worry about a lot of things. But I don't worry hardly about anything now because I've moved beyond that. And the way that I moved beyond worry was to realize that I am an individual, that I am a divine spiritual being able to choose whatever path I desire in my life. How amazing is that? You want to know the amazing follow-up to that? So are you. You get to choose who you are in any given moment. You get to choose who you are in any given time. So why not choose to be someone absolutely incredible that does amazing things? And they don't have to be humongous things, they don't have to be big things. You just need to figure out who you want to be, who you desire to be, and how you can ultimately help people in a phenomenal way. And that's one thing I love about art, is that it gives you the ability to be able to stop and think. It gives you the time to be able to focus your mind. The other thing I love about art is that you can create something beautiful that came from a single thought. Thoughts are powerful, but it came from a single thought. It came from an idea, a concept, a notion, and you can bring it into real life. You want to know how powerful art is? Art has the power to change the world. How do I know this? Simple. Because there is nothing in this world that has been created that hasn't been thought into being. Everything you can touch, taste, smell, hear, see, I got them all, touch, taste, smell, hear, and see, all began as a thought. It all began as a thought, which then turned into an action, and had something amazing alongside. So I hope you enjoyed watching this somewhat little painting tutorial. I know it's harder to do on a webcam, but you can see it all and a little bit more at thejohnmorris.co.uk. We're going to run now to another commercial break for our sponsors, but also for the LA Tribune, and we will be back right after this. I think you're also going to enjoy this sponsor as well, and I will see you in a moment.
Hello and welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune. Since 1886, our name has been a part of the world of journalism. We have earned a reputation for being a publication that practices integrity, authenticity, and responsibility. For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
When we come into this world, we come in with a sense of awe and wonder, believing that things will work out for the best, filled with excitement. We play like children and we enjoy our lives. But as we get older, we find out that everything maybe isn't as rosy as we first thought it would be. Live life long enough and you realise that what once seemed like happy families can very quick turn into Dungeons and Dragons. Have you ever experienced anxiety, worry, or maybe even fear on an insane level? I want to let you know right here, right now, that you're not alone. Everything from homelessness, betrayal by my best friend, abandonment from the people that I thought would have my back. In fact, I've experienced so many different situations, to tell you all would take a very, very long time indeed. But the good news is I'm here to tell you that, well, they've left their mark on me. I've come through all of them. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I've got a brand new book. It's called The Battles That We All Face. This book is designed to give you encouragement. It's designed to give you hope. It's designed to teach you, to challenge you, to get you to think a little bit more. The full title is The Battles We All Face, a devotional with a difference. Because I don't want you to just read it from start to finish. I want you to take time over this. I want you to read the first chapter and really process it. This book is designed, if nothing more, as I said, to challenge you, to encourage you, to give you hope, but ultimately to let you know that whatever you're facing, you, my friend, are not alone. I want to encourage you right now to not let fear or the past stop you from living an amazing, amazing life. Each page in this book has one of my art pieces in and has been specifically placed there to give you, the reader, an association to the subject discussed. Please don't delay. You owe it to yourself to start rebuilding your life. Life is not over until you draw your last. Don't delay. Order today. Life is short. You owe it to yourself, as long as you're drawing breath, to stand up and fight for the things that you want in life. And my friend, you've got an ally in me who understands completely what you're going through. Have an awesome day. Click that link below, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, folks, we are back, and I hope you enjoyed seeing both of all the news that the LA Tribune is going on and all the happenings that are there. We've knocked our camera slightly. It's not the painting that's wonky. There we go. We're all straight again. Yeah, I mean, you know, and also about my brand new book, The Battles We All Face, and some of the life lessons that are in there. You know, is everything that we talked about with anxiety, with letting go, with moving forward. You can get it on Amazon. You can also get it at thejohnmorris.co.uk. You can get the audio version as well. It's a fantastic book. And to give you an indication, you know, I mean, you've 40 different teachings in here, but also you've got artwork in there like you wouldn't believe. Now, this is the original edition. On the edition that's on Amazon, it's even better than this. Amazon have done a phenomenal job in publishing this for us, and you can check that out over on Amazon, The Battles We All Face, John Morris. We cover everything from anxiety to depression to moving on, how to recover from trauma, and so much more in this book. 40 life lessons you would not believe, because out of 8.6 billion people, guess what? When you feel at your lowest and you feel most miserable, remember that the 8.6 billion people are here right now. But there's also been hundreds of billions of people that have walked on this planet long before you. Long will they walk on the planet after you. And guess what? They go through the same thing over and over and over again. There will be someone else that will be telling you in years to come about anxiety, about letting go, about the importance of spirituality and everything else that's there. So that there really, truly is nothing new under the sun. Before we move into our final segment for today's show, we're going to turn and see if there's any questions. Okay. So I want to thank Bubba for his comment there. Have a blessed day. Thank you very much, Bubba. I really appreciate it. We've got Al Chan as well that says great historical sharing of Native Americans and how they are outcasted with a beautiful painting. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And it's true. I mean, the amazing thing about artwork is that you're able to tell stories and get people's interest. As things going on. So if you guys have got questions or anything you want to discuss upon the show, fire it into the chat bar now. We've got about 20 minutes left. And again, you can talk about anything regarding to the art, today's show, anxiety, whatever it is. Even if you just got general questions, fire them in and we'll see if we can get to them before the end of the show. But now I want to move into the final section of today's show. Just as I did with the painting, which was a bit like a show and tell, just as I did with anxiety, which was your audio responses and your audio receptacles, I want to do something a little bit unique with you today. Not that this show hasn't already been unique. Have you ever heard of a thing called the tree meditation? Now, some people will be like, well, I've heard of it. I've never heard of it. It sounds a little bit bizarre. Both in India and Native American cultures, and I'm sure in Buddhism and many other things around there as well, there's a thing called the tree meditation. Now, as you can see beside me, we have a bonsai tree. Now, I love cultivating, growing, developing, shaping, doing all manner of things with the bonsai tree. This one behind me, if you can see it, is about 7 years old. It's not very, very old at all. I've got a couple over there that have now shed their leaves for the rest of the year. And it's that time of year where, everything is seasonal. Okay, so they're starting to go to sleep now for the winter. They've had a great harvest. They've produced beautiful leaves. They've done incredible things. This one has been pruned because it was actually taking over a lot of the room. It was very, very close to touching the other aspect of sorry, I was reading a question there from Al Chan. I'll get to that in a second, Al. It threw me slightly, but it was actually touching over the other side of the studio where I'm in today. And tremendous fun. So let's just jump quickly to a question, and then we'll move on with the show because it talks about the paintings behind me. What inspires the 3 elephant paintings at the back? It looks like 3 loves father, mother, and kid. I absolutely love that, Al. Thank you so much for that question. Everybody that sees it seems to have a different idea of what it is. It's called the Elephants in the Mist painting. The inspiration of it truly wasn't as exciting as a lot of people think. That the inspiration for it was literally, I just wanted to paint silhouettes. So you have the beautiful goldeny red skies, the beautiful sunset skies in the back. Originally, they were just silhouettes that are here. If you go to our YouTube channel over at Mind, Body and Soul with John Morris, you'll see one of our shows, which is called The Artist Heart. The latest episode from Scotland shows actually me painting that and the different stages and variations that came through. And it's fascinating to watch. It truly is. And you can check that out. In fact, you can check that out at thejohnmorris.co.uk. So folks, if you've got any further questions, ask them in the chat bar. Well, I'll get to them in the last 5 minutes. But what I want to talk about a little bit now is, as I said, the tree meditation. And it's really important to get back to nature. If I can encourage you anything with this show and for today, would be if you get the chance and the opportunity to go outside, even for half an hour a day, Barefoot works best. So if you do it in your garden, if you've got grass around your garden and everything, it works best because you're recharging into the soil. But if you don't, and you maybe live in an apartment, or if you're living in, places that are really busy or where the air isn't particularly clean, then it's important to fill your home with as, believe it or not, much real life as possible, with not artificial plants and flowers and everything. So, as I mentioned, this one behind me is 7 years old. Okay, this one, if I can show you, is let me turn it around to its best side. There we go. This one here is 22 years old. It is a 22-year-old bonsai, which it does need a little bit of a trim on this side, but aside from that, it really takes care of itself. And it is actually my favorite of all the bonsais. This is the Fix ginseng, and I love the leaves on this a lot more. They're a lot thicker, they're a lot more vibrant and everything. But what I love most of all about this is the shape that it's developed, the shape that's been cultivated, the spiritual aspect of it as well. If you read the book Ikigai, which is, I suppose, a guide to life, they talk about Japanese trees and cultivating and everything, and how it's become not only an art form, but a meditative practice. It is something very, very special. Because when you are trimming these leaves, you're actually trimming it into an art piece, into a masterpiece. Remember how I said that there are many different art forms? I didn't, but I just wanted to see if people actually would believe that I did. But there are many different art forms, and this is one of them. So this is a 22-year-old tree. I've had it for almost since it was a baby. In fact, I've had it a very, very long time. I'm going to put it down because my arm is getting tired. Oh, yeah. It also weighs an absolute ton. We've got maybe one or two that are going to be getting a little bit up to that size as well. But it's incredible when you start to see these things come to life. So why on earth am I sitting here talking about trees? The tree meditation is very, very simple. It reminds you how much we need each other. It reminds you how much we need the earth, how much we need creation, how much we need to stop chopping down all the trees. Now, the good thing is that a lot of the trees are now being replenished and replanted. Is it enough activity? I don't know. I don't know if people have acted soon enough. I hope they have. But the tree meditation is this. If you get to sit by a tree, or if you've got your own bonsai and things like that, you sit beside it, you close your eyes, and you focus on this. Okay, now you can do this if you're at home, you can close your eyes. Don't do this if you're driving, but you can close your eyes and just listen to the sound of my voice. Everything that you breathe out, the tree needs and breathes in. Everything that the tree breathes out, you need and you breathe in. It is what I call the law of transaction. Everything we give out is received in one form or another, and everything that we receive has been given out. So when you breathe in, you're breathing in the divine tree, and when you're breathing out, the tree is breathing in divine you. And it is one of the simplest meditations to do. You sit with your eyes closed, you keep the picture of the tree firmly fixed in your mind, or you can just sit looking at the tree, observing all its bark. Like, for example, I can tell you almost every nook and cranny upon that tree there. I can tell you almost every nook and cranny upon that one. I can actually tell you that this one has a blue paint splatter on. That's how well I know that tree. And that was from, I don't know, years ago or something. And it just never, it actually absorbed and was fine. It was happy. But it gave it more character. The interesting thing about it is when you start doing these meditations, you are taking control of you. You are taking control of who you are. You're taking control of your mind. Stop allowing society to dictate who you are, your gender, your identity. The crazy thing is, I think people have got so many gender identity issues now, not because of who they are, but because of the amount of pornography that's on the internet, amount of stuff that's on there that's designed to confuse, but also because society is trying to get you confused. Seemingly, it seems to be that way. Take control of who you are and realize that you are a divine spirit having a temporary human experience. Your divine spirit is something incredible. The divine spirit of the tree is something amazing. And when you recognize and realize who you are, you close your eyes and breathing in what the tree is giving out. The tree needs what I'm breathing out. I need what the tree breathes out. The tree needs what I breathe out. And you're doing this transaction backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. Before you know it, you'll end up being less focused on yourself, and you'll begin becoming more focused upon that which you're achieving or which you desire. Final thing I want to say, I suppose, today, folks, and I'm going to have a look quickly and see if there are any questions, because I know we are just about out of time. And I want to thank you so much for watching this. It's almost haphazard pilot, but I really hope that you've enjoyed it. And if you have, make sure to let people know, tell folks, let people know. Come and visit us at thejohnmorris.com. thejohnmorris.co.uk. Very important that we get that one right. But it's amazing when you actually get to a point of this incredible awe and wonder of life. And what I want to encourage you with is this. Focus on that which you want to be. Many people are reaching their lives and kind of miserable in their lives because they're saying to themselves, well, I'm achieving what I don't want. It's like, well, what are you focusing on? That what I don't want. And it's like, right, start focusing on that which you do want. They always say that they haven't got enough money. Start focusing on being abundantly blessed. There's enough meditations out there. There's one whose name I forget. Oh dear, yeah, it's gone straight out of my head. But he's got a phenomenal meditation called Large Sums of Money. But and his is actually one of the best that I have ever come across. There are other people out there that say, well, I want education, but I just don't know where to begin. Begin online. It's the largest library in the entire world. When you start educating, just start somewhere. That's the biggest problem. A lot of people never, ever get started. But when you get started, these phenomenal things will take place. I just want to share with you a quick story if I can. 2021 has been a phenomenal year for me. I know it's been a year of struggle for a lot of people. I know it's been a lot of, crazy, crazy stuff that's gone on. I had gone through 5 years of anger, bitterness, frustration, being my own worst enemy in many, many respects. Because I wasn't dealing with my own inner engineering. I wasn't dealing with what was going on. I used to work for a church, and I guess I got sick and tired of the political structure and all the stupidity in some ways that went on. And I left, but I left really bitter and really angry. And that's what spurred on so many other things. So to cut a long story short, 2021, the beginning of January, maybe the middle of January, I put on YouTube. If you've heard the other shows, you know this story. I put on YouTube and literally began listening to Wayne Dyer's Everyday Wisdom, which our version will be out at the beginning of next month. All being well, we're recording it as we speak. Again, you can check that out, thejohnmorris.co.uk. And literally within 2 hours, I no longer felt angry. I no longer felt bitter. I no longer felt frustrated. I was at peace and calm. My wife couldn't believe it. She'd had 5 years of me being frustrated and wound up because I hadn't dealt with my own inner engineering. Guess what? When I then started to broaden my horizons and I started listening to more Wayne Dyer, and then I started listening to Earl Nightingale, and then I started listening to Bob Proctor, and then I started listening to Jim Rohn and many, many of the other, people that are out there that are now, no longer with us physically, but very much with us spiritually. My life began to change. I encountered a business partner who, all being well, her and her husband are going to be on this show next week. Very, very excited about that. Anyway, but I encountered her and we started doing a thing called Teen Life Coaching, where we coached teenagers. It then developed into something a lot more. I reconnected with Natalie Forrest, who obviously has got a phenomenal show on this platform. We connected about talking about books. And it wasn't just the battles we all face. It was my novel series, which I'm currently writing. And it's a phenomenal series. I can't wait for it to come out. It begins next year. 17th of November, 2022 is the date that's already selected. So, then obviously I end up on this platform, to all of you wonderful people. Natalie and I met when I went to the United States in 2012. I was painting, I was singing, I was doing my music. If you ever get to hear a performance or anything, be sure to check it out because it's quite an experience. I'll leave that up to your own imagination. But the amazing thing was we connected. We'd lost touch. But then I just shot her a message one day. I said, "How are you doing?" She told me all that had been going on. I did the same. And then before we knew it, all these things started to happen. Financially, things started to change because I no longer tried to hold on to everything that I had sought before. I just started to let things flow. I imagine myself now standing in a river, allowing things flowing towards me in beautiful Pitlochry, which is in the north of Scotland. If you ever get the opportunity to go or check out pictures, do. You can see our brand new Artist Hearts Series 3 show that's on YouTube every Friday. It tours around Scotland, but it's got these gorgeous mountains. And when they're filled with snow and you're in the forest and all these amazing things, and it's flowing towards me, I choose now what I pick up and hold and what I let go. And you can do the same. We're going to jump on quickly now just to see if there are any final questions. And I know I may go a little bit over time, so I apologize that if I do. Okay, Facebook user, thank you for saying wow. We've had, what else? It seems the painting and the bonsai are a great way to relax and to meditate in the mind. Yes, they are. It's a point of focus. Remember, you choose your life. You choose what's going on. Let's see. Al-Chan, white grizzly is rarely seen in endangered species. I love the little colorful mushrooms. How do you foresee the grizzly lives in the wilderness of the beautiful waterfall backdrop? You know, that's a really good question, Al. And I'm assuming you're referring to the painting, not as in terms of the lives of the grizzlies. But I see it certainly developing more and more. I think keeping the simplicity, I think, is a big thing for me, but I don't think it needs much more. Maybe a few little ridges here and there, to really bring it all together. And the final one, have I stayed in Japan before to be in love with bonsais, or do I have a sensei mentoring this meditation? No, actually, that's a great question, Al. And I am going to go a little bit over because I can. But something really interesting about that is I have been cultivating those since I was 17 years old. It's now, 15 years since I've been working with those trees and doing that. And I did it because I fell in love with them. I believe actually I fell in love with them because I fell in love with Mr. Miyagi from The Karate Kid. And I think differently. I absorb these different cultures and these different ways and I explore them. And what I found is actually when the student is ready, the teachers will appear. And when you start letting God, divine spirit, whatever you want to call it, know the very things that you want and the very things that you're seeking, then he will move heaven and earth to actually help you and assist you in your pursuits, in your goals. And I have found that for the last 24 years. Since I had first encounters there, and more so this year, since I have become really aware of all that's going on. So if there are any final questions, folks, if not, we are going to just about wrap up the show today. I want to thank you all for watching, whether you stayed, whether you came for a little bit, whether you disappeared. Thank you so much, all of you, for watching. I have had a blast on this first inaugural pilot of the Mind, Body and Soul show. Come and check us out at thejohnmorris.co.uk. You can check out the artwork, you can check out personal development coaching, you can check out the books, you can check out some free courses as well, you can check out how to paint and so much more that's there. I would love you to do that, and hopefully I would love you guys to keep in touch because it's been phenomenal to be here with you and for you guys to get to know a little bit about me and for me to get to encounter with you guys as well. It has been a blast. Next week, all being well, as I said, we are going to have guests on this show, and it's going to be interesting for sure. It's going to be exciting. So, from all of us here at Mind, Body and Soul, the LA Tribune, this has been the Mind, Body and Soul show, where we help you find balance in the craziness of day-to-day life. I have been your host, John Morris, the author, the artist, and personal development coach. We are out of time. Have a phenomenal day, my friends. Take care, God bless, and I will see you next time.
Welcome to the Mind, Body and Soul Show with artist, author and personal development coach John Morris. Inspiring, motivating and educating you on your journey to find balance in the craziness of day-to-day life. Learn from and listen to a man who has a wealth of life experience, from business to bodybuilding, artist to author, and has learned to deal with his own physical and mental wellness. But that's not all. Each week, John will be joined by guests from around the world and all walks of life, where they too will share their knowledge and expertise. And now, we welcome you to today's episode of the Mind, Body and Soul Show, with your host, John Morris.